In the wake of the 2008 global financial meltdown, a profound erosion of confidence swept through economies worldwide. Banks that had once symbolized security revealed themselves as fragile constructs built on excessive debt and risky bets. As institutions like Lehman Brothers crumbled, triggering a domino effect across markets, governments stepped in with massive bailouts funded by newly created money. This intervention, while averting total collapse, deepened inequalities. Executives walked away with bonuses, but countless families faced foreclosures, unemployment, and depleted retirement funds. Workers in manufacturing towns saw factories shutter, parents worried about feeding their children, and retirees grappled with the fear of outliving their savings. This crisis wasn't just numbers on balance sheets, it was a human ordeal, exposing how centralized financial systems could amplify suffering for the vulnerable while shielding the elite. Amid this turmoil, an anonymous figure known as Satoshi Nakamoto introduced a radical alternative through a concise technical document shared online. Released in late 2008, the proposal outlined a digital currency system that operated without intermediaries, relying instead on cryptographic proofs and a distributed network. By capping the total supply at 21 million units and enabling direct peer-to-peer transfers, it aimed to counteract the inflationary pressures of fiat currencies. Transactions would be validated collectively by participants, etched into an unalterable digital record, the blockchain, ensuring permanence and openness. This innovation drew from earlier ideas in cryptography and decentralized computing, echoing historical efforts to create sound money, like the gold standard's fixed supply that once restrained government overspending. Yet, in this modern iteration, the focus shifted to empowering individuals against institutional overreach, offering a tool for those disillusioned by the bailouts that prioritized banks over citizens. The network activated in early 2009 with the mining of its inaugural block, embedding a subtle critique of contemporary events, a headline from a British newspaper highlighting yet another bank rescue. Mining, far from physical extraction, involved computers racing to solve intricate algorithms, a process that not only confirmed transactions but also introduced new currency into circulation as incentives. This mechanism fostered a self-sustaining ecosystem where global volunteers, programmers tinkering in home offices, idealists seeking autonomy, contributed processing power to maintain integrity. In those initial years, adoption was modest. Enthusiasts exchanged the asset on niche platforms, often for trivial sums. One early transaction underscored the novelty. A programmer traded 10,000 units for a pair of pizzas, a deal that in hindsight represented an enormous opportunity cost as values soared. For these pioneers, it wasn't merely about commerce. It embodied a quest for financial independence, free from the whims of policymakers whose decisions had recently devastated livelihoods. As awareness grew, so did volatility and vulnerabilities. By the early 2010s, the asset's value climbed dramatically, attracting traders eager for quick gains. Platforms emerged to facilitate exchanges, but without oversight, they became breeding grounds for mishaps. A major collapse in 2014 saw one prominent exchange lose hundreds of thousands of coins through security breaches, evaporating fortunes overnight. Account holders, many of whom were everyday savers experimenting with new technology, awoke to empty balances and no avenue for redress. The blockchain's transparency allowed tracing the misappropriated funds, yet anonymity shielded perpetrators, leaving victims in despair. Families who had invested modest sums now facing financial ruin, their trust shattered anew. This incident highlighted a core tension. While the protocol eliminated traditional gatekeepers, it also removed safeguards, forcing users to bear full responsibility for errors or deceptions. Broader ecosystems around the currency amplified these risks. Scams proliferated. Fraudulent schemes promising impossible returns, deceptive software stealing access keys, and manipulative tactics that preyed on hope. In one record year, 2022, losses from such exploits across related digital assets exceeded several $billions, affecting not just speculators but also retirees dipping into pensions or young professionals seeking alternatives to stagnant wages. Hardware solutions for secure storage offered some protection, yet even these couldn't prevent voluntary transfers to con artists, underscoring the harsh bargain. Autonomy demanded vigilance, a burden that weighed heavily on those lacking technical expertise. Leaders in the space promoted self-custody as empowerment, but for many, it evoked anxiety rather than liberation, a reminder that economic experiments could exacerbate personal insecurities. One nation's bold embrace illustrated these dynamics on a societal scale. In 2021, El Salvador, grappling with dollar dependency and remittance flows that sustained migrant families, declared the currency legal tender. The president, envisioning it as a pathway to inclusion for the unbanked, distributed initial allocations via a government app and installed access points nationwide. Coastal communities transformed into hubs of experimentation, drawing visitors curious about this shift. However, implementation faltered amid practical hurdles. Citizens, accustomed to stable cash for daily needs like market shopping or school fees, encountered app malfunctions and value swings that eroded purchasing power. When prices dropped sharply in 2022, national reserves diminished, sparking public unrest. Protesters in the capital voiced frustrations over lost savings and inaccessible funds. Families worried about volatility undermining their hard-earned remittances. By mid-decade, assessments showed limited uptake. Surveys indicated only a fraction of the population engaged regularly, with most preferring familiar dollars for bills and loans. International pressures, including conditions tied to financial aid, prompted adjustments, making acceptance optional and curbing large-scale acquisitions. While tourism boosted select areas, broader adoption stalled, revealing how technological ideals clashed with everyday realities. For ordinary Salvadorans, farmers, vendors, and laborers, the initiative stirred confusion and caution rather than confidence, highlighting persistent divides. The informed elite navigated opportunities, but the majority faced added uncertainty in an already precarious economy. This case study echoed historical monetary shifts, like abrupt currency devaluations in Latin America, where top-down changes often burden the working class while benefiting the adaptable. Parallel to these developments, influence consolidated among major holders, often termed whales for their outsized impact. By 2025, a small percentage of accounts commanded over half the supply, enabling price swings through large transactions. Such movements could unsettle global markets, affecting not just investors but also those indirectly exposed via pensions or funds. Unlike conventional markets, where authorities scrutinize concentrated power to prevent abuses, this realm operated without mandatory disclosures. Tactics like timed sells to induce panic or coordinated actions in private networks went unchecked, fostering an environment where ambition trumped equity. Traders felt the pressure of these invisible forces, their strategies upended by sudden shifts, while newcomers entered with dreams of wealth only to encounter a landscape tilted toward the entrenched. Political landscapes evolved too, with figures like a returning U.S. president in 2025 championing deregulation to position the nation as a hub for digital assets. Executive actions eased restrictions, spurring inflows and innovations, yet also reviving familiar patterns of hype and exploitation. This stance resonated with advocates viewing it as a bulwark against overreach, but it raised concerns about unchecked growth mirroring past bubbles, like the dot-com era where unchecked optimism led to widespread losses. Families investing household savings experienced the highs of surges and the lows of corrections, their aspirations tempered by the fear of irrecoverable setbacks. Fundamentally, this narrative reflects enduring questions about money's essence. Born from distrust in institutions, the currency demonstrated that value could arise from consensus and computation, challenging centuries-old monopolies on issuance. Historical parallels abound, from private banknotes in the 19th century that promised stability but often failed, to modern central banking born of crises like the Great Depression. Yet success brought scrutiny. Without enforced norms, self-interest drove disparities, transforming ideals of equality into new hierarchies. Communities emphasized verification over trust, urging secure practices, but this philosophy suited the prepared few, leaving others isolated in a complex web. As imitators proliferated, diluting the original's focus, distinctions sharpened. The core network endured as a bastion of scarcity and security, while surrounding ventures chased speed and novelty, often at the cost of reliability. Regulatory fragmentation globally, bans in some regions, integration in others, underscored the absence of unified governance, allowing powerful actors to exploit gaps. In this vacuum, power didn't dissolve. It redistributed from official halls to algorithmic domains. Ultimately, the saga prompts reflection on whether unbridled liberty in finance fosters progress or peril. Societies historically balanced innovation with protections to mitigate harms, as seen in post-crisis reforms that introduced deposit guarantees and oversight. Here, the ledger's unflinching record offers truth but not remedy, compelling users to confront human frailties, greed, error, and inequality that no code can fully erase. The long-term view suggests resilience, having weathered downturns and skepticism, yet the moral quandary persists. Can a borderless asset thrive amid self-serving incentives without inviting new forms of control? For more deep, carefully researched stories from economic history, subscribe to our channel, Einstein of Economy.